Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by Jingle Ghost. Annoying my annoying form tutor at secondary school. UK 12 to 16 year olds. At my secondary school that I attended in the noughties, every pupil was given a planner. A small A5 diary that we would list our homework, to-do list, and any other school-related items that need attention. At the bottom of each week, there were 2 lines for signatures, one for our form tutor and one for our parent/guardian. The idea being that our parents would keep an eye on our homework schedule and make sure we were keeping up to date. Now my sister had got quite good at forging our mother's signature, and our form tutor didn't really check his students' planners because he was about 60, old school hard man who didn't appreciate petty little things like signatures. Think Ron Swanson, but with a thick British working class accent. He once even removed the headmaster from his classroom because he didn't want to be disturbed while drinking his tea. Absolute legend. Anyway, this story sadly isn't about him, it's about my form tutor. I declined the offer from my sister to forge a signature because I wanted to play a trick on my tutor for being an a-hole and I wanted to do it honestly. You see, my tutor was all about authority and hierarchy. He was a young chap who had only recently qualified as a teacher and the power had already gone to his head. His classes were rarely fun and he always made you feel inferior. Cue my malicious compliance. As anyone who has attended school in the past 30 years can attest, stationery played an important part of your coolness, and so every student had a spectrum of colored gel pens, highlighters, markers, and even glitter glue sticks. My form tutor, in trying to assert his dominance, announced that students write in blue or black ink and only I, being a teacher, write in red ink. The first weekly planner check comes around and I show him my mother's signature in red ink. Well, he thinks this must be stamped out immediately. Stands up from his desk to explain to the class about how this is a perfect example of how things can get muddled because of the wrong color ink. And he repeats the claim that only he can use red ink because he is a teacher. He turns to me and asks me why I think this is appropriate, and I reply, not only to him, but to the entire class, "Sir, my mother is the headmistress of so-and-so school, and she has also sat on the school's board of governors for the last 5 years." His face turned as red as the ink. I sat back down in my seat, and the entire class learned a valuable lesson in malicious compliance. I made sure every week that my mother signed in red ink just so he had to place his signature next to it and remember his weakened authority. So would you actually agree with this teacher's notion that only the teacher should be writing in red ink? I think mainly because they want to be able to mark stuff and make notes and point out things in their red ink that clearly only belongs to the teacher. Or do you think that's just too restrictive? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Nightfire 3497. Supervisor gave me a verbal warning for being their best employee and then complained that I'm following the rules as a result? Fine. Let me talk to your supervisor. Back in 2018, I started working at a delivery company. When I started working, they gave me a rule book that stated that all drivers cannot exceed 5 miles per hour over the designated speed limit. All drivers were required to take their lunch breaks, 30 minutes unpaid, on the way back to our facility at the end of their first run. Most drivers had 2 runs in a day. And we were also required to load our vans ourselves in the morning and unload any undelivered items when we got back. Our delivery vans were equipped with trackers that monitored our speed and would beep loudly if you went over 74 miles per hour. Malicious compliance. I had been working at this company for over a year without any issue, and I had quickly become one of the more valuable drivers by taking on extra runs and staying late to help out other drivers. Most of the time, my delivery routes took me on highways that were listed at 65 miles per hour, but if I was covering another driver's route, there was a chance that the highways were listed at 55 miles per hour. I was the driver that finished their runs in record time by not taking my lunch break and driving just under the van trucker's max speed trigger, even if it meant going 20 miles per hour above the listed speed limit. I did this because our company prided itself on having fast response time on same-day deliveries, and my supervisors turned a blind eye to my speeding. That is, until they gave me a verbal warning about speeding. I'm not sure what happened to make them change. All I know is that as soon as I got the warning, I initiated malicious compliance mode. I started doing everything by the book. I drove at exactly the listed speed limit and started taking my lunch breaks. My efficiency tanked and the company was falling behind on deliveries because I wasn't there to take on any last-minute orders, so they had to hire more drivers. I would just sit in a parking lot somewhere listening to Reddit stories on YouTube during the entirety of my lunch breaks. And to make things even better, if there were slower vehicles on the highway, I would make sure to stay behind them and drive at their speed, even if it meant driving at 10 to 20 miles per hour under the speed limit. Fallout. My supervisors were extremely pissed at me for causing them so many issues, but they couldn't really do anything about it. And oh boy did they try. They tried changing my routes, giving me only one run for the day, and telling me that I was required to take my lunch break after I returned from my run. I ended up getting them off my back by going to my supervisor's supervisor and explaining everything to them, which in turn basically made me untouchable to my supervisors. I simply continued following the rules, and if I ended with overtime because of it, oh well. That's on the supervisor's head, not mine. To me, OP's original strategy of dealing with work came with its own time limit. I think it was only a matter of time before that kind of action got shut down. Going way above the speed limit, not taking a lunch break, it was just bound to get canceled one way or another eventually. Thing is, and the resolution of the story is, the supervisors had no ground to stand on to complain when OP did start doing everything exactly by the book, which is just of course way off that pillar of them speeding and not taking a lunch break to get done really quickly. Our next story is by Star Hunter. You want to give me in-school suspension where I have to spend the day by myself in a classroom? Okay, that works. Bit of background here. I went to a religious boarding school for high school, and one of the things we had to do was go to prayers every day on time. I won't explain in full the consequences of tardiness or absence, there was a whole point system, etc. But if you did it enough, you got in-school suspension for a day. Basically, you had to sit in a classroom from 9 to 7, minus lunch and afternoon prayers, and you couldn't leave. They gave you one assignment, an essay on why you were tardy/absent so much, but anything else to keep yourself not insane was your responsibility. No music or phones were allowed either. So eventually this happened to me, and I was taken to the classroom after breakfast, given my assignment, and that was it. The assignment took me maybe 2 hours to do, so now I have another 7-ish hours to learn my lesson? Well, anything to keep myself not bored. An example, schoolwork, books, works. Since I didn't give a crap about falling behind in the morning classes, I read a book, and in the afternoon, I reviewed for a math test, finished all my math homework, wrote an essay, read another book, and by that time my suspension was over. So for following the rules, I had a pretty functional day with no class. I guess that is a very positive thing. You can just get all the work out of the way, you're completely up to date. But if that was me and I had to be in there for all those hours by myself, I definitely think I would start going a little loopy. And I think really that's the heart of the punishment. Most people are expected to not be able to fill all of those hours up being productive or keeping their minds sufficiently occupied. AKA, you won't want to get in-school suspension again. This next story is by Caesar. Siblings will get along if they share? Let's test this theory. Not my story, but my dad's. So this happened somewhere around the early to mid 1950s. My dad, then age 6, and his sister, then aged 4.5, fought like cats and dogs, especially when it came to sharing food. My grandmother's solution one day for sharing a treat like a candy bar was to have one sibling split it and the other sibling pick which side they wanted. My dad was told to split for his sister, but he saw an opportunity. Knowing she would always pick whichever was more, my dad divided it perfectly in half, down to the crumb. She looked at them and scaled, but it was a perfect split. Since she didn't have a bigger piece, this drove her crazy, so she threw a tantrum. Then Grandma punished her for not sharing, and my dad got the whole bar in the end. I mean, fair's fair, right? Splitting a candy bar's totally fair, just take perfect halves. Ain't no room for anybody being a spoiled little brat like that. Good on the grandma for teaching them what's what. This next story is by Panface. You want me to stop what I'm doing and do this other thing? So this happened several times at my job. Still at it, over a few years. I work at Kroger and was in the drug GM department after being transferred there for no reason from grocery/dairy. So fast forward a few months, I'm working a pallet and a half of product on the floor to carts and then to the shelf. We had an area we could hide the pallets out of the way of customers, so we didn't have to work in the congested back room all the time. I'm minding my own business, doing my job when my store manager comes over and gets mad. "Why are you over here instead of in dairy?" "Oh, well, this is my department, so, you know." "Stop what you're doing and get over in dairy, there's no one there." A little more backstory. We have lost at least 3 dairy managers in the course of a year for various reasons. One of the full-time day shift workers quit on the spot, and I would frequently get yelled at for taking too long to clean up when told to go to another department out of the blue. So I get told to go to dairy. Okay, what do? I leave everything on the sales floor. A half-worked pallet, 2 U-boats half full, a bunch of empty boxes, plastic wrap, and a pallet jack. I work in dairy for the rest of my shift, 6 hours, and then go home. The next day, "Why'd you leave all that crap on the sales floor?" "Well, you yelled at me for taking too long to clean up, so I just did what you told me. Maybe next time don't do that?" This was 6 years ago. Since then, I have many more malicious compliance stories I can share. Just when you thought working retail was bad enough because of the bad customers you have to deal with, you end up having store managers from time to time like this that makes the whole experience doubly worse. Good on OP for sticking it out so long dealing with that. And our final story of the day is by long-suffering squid, Hanging Chad. Had the story from a friend, but I'll tell from first-person perspective for clarity. I work in a manufacturing facility. I've been there long enough to learn how to do almost everything, so I'm often asked to fill in, troubleshoot, and train new people. We had a new person transfer into the department. I've worked with him before and trained him on a few things. Let's call him Chad. At the current time, I am assigned to Station 2, and Chad is assigned to Station 3. To be clear, I am not the boss of either station. Station 3 is one of the few I'm not entirely familiar with. I know how to bypass it, but for some reason management and quality control don't like it when I do that. Something about being non-compliant and the bypass taking longer than doing it the right way in the first place. Chad is friends with people in management, so he occasionally goofs off. The rest of us, being team players, will pick up Chad's slack, but we're getting tired of it. Along comes crunch time. The rest of the team is pulling 60-hour, 6-day work weeks, but Chad is married to his normal 40-hour, 5-day work week. We're falling behind, so it should be all hands on deck. Unfortunately for us, both management and Chad value their weekends. An order comes in. Station 1, no problem. Station 2, a little messy, but nothing unusual. It's Station 3's normal responsibilities to clean up a bit. I pass the order to Chad in Station 3. Station 3, problem. It's a rush order, the end of the day, but Chad wants to go home. Well, I say end the day, but the rest of us will be pulling a couple hours of overtime. Chad could pass the order off to someone else at Station 3, but then they'll get credit for it. However, if he pushes it back into my hands and I have to force the order to bypass Station 3, the system will register him as having processed it. So, as expected, Chad approaches me with, "Can you take care of this for me, bruh? I've got places to be. It'll look bad for the department if this doesn't get done. Just do your job." I give Chad a look, thinking, one management hates when I bypass stations. 2, I also got places to be, bruh, but I'm still staying here for another 2 hours. 3, I'm not the boss. It may look bad for the department, but it won't look bad for me. 4, I finished my job the instant I handed this order off to you. 5, I am getting supremely tired of Chad's BS, so I smile a hard, bright smile. Sure thing, Chad. I'll just do my job. Enjoy your weekend. Chad leaves. I go back to my work at Station 2, and the order in question sits on Chad's desk at Station 3, undone for the entire weekend. Turns out this order was for an important client. It also turns out Chad had gotten scheduled Monday and Tuesday off due to his friends in management. A 4-day weekend during crunch time when everyone else is pulling 6-day work weeks. To say management was angry would be inaccurate. They were approaching incandescently furious. On Wednesday, Chad came in and was immediately pulled into a meeting where he was cut down, chewed up, reamed out, told he better shape up or they were going to ship his butt out. There was no help for Chad from his friends in management. Higher managers had started to take note of the exceptions being taken on Chad's behalf, and Chad's friends were looking to cover their own butts. Chad comes to me sullenly. I don't know why you didn't just do the darn thing. But Chad, I protested, I did what you told me to. I just did my job. You can't have your cake and eat it too. It was really one or the other for Chad. Either get credit for the work and do it and stay there, or pass it off to someone else at Station 3 and enjoy your weekend. He could have gotten to go home and enjoy his weekend and not have any problems with it. But because they wanted to take advantage of somebody else for their own gain, they ended up screwing themselves when that person understandably didn't come through for him. And while you might be able to rely on friends in management, they can't always carry you through absolutely everything. You're gonna have to take care of things yourself at some point. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.